Hey, Zach, is that your shirt or the pajamas?
It's a shirt, I promise.
Unknown caller.
Gotta take this.
There we go.
Hey, Randy. Good. I'm just about going into my planning. Okay. We have a good number of people already in the participant list. Hello, Amy.
Hi.
Zach, is Brad joining this meeting?
He is off tonight, so it'll just be Amy and I.
Okay. And Chris is here. Okay. So anytime we're ready, I will do the opening wrap and then we could proceed from there.
Yeah, just as a quick preface for the board members and Amy, I just sent a link for the executive session. I'm not able to do a breakout room
Link,
through
okay.
a Zoom webinar, so it's easier just to create a secondary meeting. If I set that for 7:30, if the time doesn't work, I'll send a revised one during the meeting, but just so that you're all aware, we will just end this meeting and then start. Well, we won't end this meeting. We will go to a new meeting and then come back to the old one. And Amy can probably provide some guidance on the best way to do that. But once we hit that moment, we can talk about that more.
Well, that's probably the last item on the agenda. So why would we want to go back?
The only complicating thing is just a vote to end the meeting. So since I think from what I've discussed with Amy, that can't be done during executive session. So it might just be something where there's a motion made to end at a certain time.
Oh, okay.
Or something along those
Alrighty.
lines, but I think we can cross that bridge when we get to it.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, we'll make it public.
I'm all set. We've been recording, so I think we're all good.
Let's see what we have. Okay. Are we on?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Board public meeting of September 29th. We have all of our planning board members present, along with Zach Powell, principal planner, and our counsel, Amy Levine. Our planning board members are Martin Hall, Glenisa Gayard, Roman Kuchera, and Christopher Ellis. I'm the chair, Al DeSalvo. We have 2 items on the public meeting agenda, and also some items for information only. The rules of procedure for the planning meeting is that we will have applicants make an initial presentation of 10 minutes. And the planning board members then will have an opportunity to question the applicants, to get clarifications or for general information or concerns. We will then hear from the public, anybody who would like to testify. And Zach will indicate to you after I'm done how to do that. Each person can speak for 3 minutes. Any members who are attending from the Albany Common Council can speak for 6 minutes, as they represent a larger constituency within the project area that we might be talking about. That applicants by anything that may need clarification or correction. And then if action is needed, the board will vote. However, before that, we will also hear from the planning staff and its recommendations concerning each project. I'll now turn this over to Zach Powell, who will explain to you the way to give testimony and how to make yourself known, so Zach knows how to plug you in.
Hi, everyone. So for anyone who's signed in through their computer or smart device, we'll be able to see you on the participant list with your name that you provided when you registered for the meeting in Zoom. If you signed up through your phone number, you can raise your hand by pressing, I believe, *9, and that'll know that you let us know that you want to speak on a particular application. I think I only see one person on the phone right now. If you have not already signed up to speak on any of the applications, feel free to send us a message through chat and we can sign you up on the speakers list. If possible, it'd be great to do that well in advance of the time that members of the public and elected officials are allowed to speak. But we know sometimes that may change, but that's the best way to let us know that you want to speak on a particular issue. When it is your time to speak, there'll be a timer that'll be on the screen. that'll provide a warning at the 30-second mark with an audible noise, as well as a visual change in color, so that people who are using their phones or a computer are able to tell when they have only 30 seconds left. And then there will be 3 beeps when your time is done. And if you have any other questions about how to sign up to speak or just the general process of giving comments, feel free to send us a chat message during the meeting and we can help. Anything I missed, Al, or?
2 items on the agenda. I'm sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay. As I mentioned, we have 2 the agenda, and the property address is 244 State Street. It's also known as 90 South Swan. The applicant representing the owners is Jason Singer from Nolan Engineering. And this is a request to do a major development plan review for the conversion of a former office building into 61 dwelling units and a small cafe as well. We have seen this project a couple of times in a workshop and public meetings, and we will likely have some work to do tonight in terms of the work that has been done in doing and meeting with the applicants and with all of the testimony that has taken place in the past. So is the applicant available?
Rich and Schnurr, I think you're now panelists, so you should be able to unmute yourselves and turn on your cameras if you'd like. Rich and Schnurr, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear us? This is Jason.
I'm here. This is Schneider.
Hi there.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, fantastic. Jason, you go ahead.
Yeah, just keep trying to get our video. I'm here. Rich is also here, Rich Nolan. Yeah, I mean, I guess we don't have to just run through everything, but we'll talk about the most recent comments. I mean, at this point, I think we responded to all the different department reviews, fire, and there was a couple comments from traffic that we'll talk about. One of the comments right here is about the rear windows. We're proposing to enlarge these windows facing the back here, away from the public way, just to bring in some more light and vent into those 4 units in the back, 4 units per floor. So that was a recent change. We're proposing 3-foot by double hung windows, double 3-foot by 5-foot windows. So they're a lot smaller right now. We're also, one of the comments from the neighborhood was they would like to see an on-site building manager, maintenance, person on site there, trash removal, somebody on site to just deal with problems and make sure trash is getting taken out. So we've designated a unit on the ground floor there that's being referred to building manager's unit. That was in response to a neighborhood request. Guess you could move on. You brought this in here. This is good. One of the very recent comments that was brought to our attention is the USDO. A requirement is to provide screening around any rooftop mechanical units. You know, it needs to be blocked from any public, from the public right of way. We don't, you know, we haven't studied yet the, you know, site, you know, how far back these are and the angles of view, but we're proposing here, if it's required, you know, the appropriate height to block the review. That you can see these boxes around the condensing unit on the roof. They're also required to, you know, go along with the architectural design. So that will be, you know, we'll work through that as we continue to develop the building through, you know, building permit submission. So that's the change there. This is talking about the same thing here. You can see an elevation that would be adding some screening on the rooftop. This is tough to see here, but you can see a little cloud there. This was just traffic had a couple more comments to us to this ramp that you can kind of see across the street, across South Swan Street. We're adding a ramp here for the crosswalk. And one of the comments was that this ramp should be coordinated not only with the City of Albany Division of Traffic Engineering, but also the New York State Office of General Services. So we've just added a note that says that will happen. Similarly, this was a comment from traffic asking us to remove the no parking signs, and that they're requesting that the no parking sign installation coordination should be done through the Division of Traffic Engineering. So that was a request to them. These are staff comments. I mean, I think that sort of covers all the, you know, all the changes and requests that have happened since we've last met.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the board members? I have one. What kind of material do you plan on using for the rooftop screening?
I mean, this is a, you know, this is a quick, something that just came to our attention, you know, like today, and we've sort of been, we haven't dug into it too much. You know, we've supposed to sort of go with the style of the building. It's a brick building, but, you know, we also don't know how far back it is, but we see, you know, metal screening or a sort of vinyl screen, but you know, I think maybe a color it sort of goes well with the brick. It's so far up there that you know, it seems like a vinyl or metal might be fine. And it's probably not, it shouldn't contrast too much, like an opposite color than the building, but something that is maybe similar. But
Yeah.
I don't know, you know, it's not, we don't have that totally dialed in yet, and we'll for sure keep you in the loop as we, you know, think through that a little bit more. But I mean, the first thinking is might be a vinyl siding with the color that kind of match.
And Al, just to provide a little bit of context, the code requires that the parapet wall be of a similar building material or feature, so it's compatible with the architectural design of the building. And then the section that Jason is speaking to as well is just making sure that the parapet wall or screening is a sufficient height to screen the equipment from the public right-of-way. So really that is the purpose of the parapet wall, is just to make sure that it's not creating a negative, you know, visual impact. And we've discussed, you know, with the applicant that if, you know, the parapet wall is visible from the public right-of-way, that would have to be reviewed as well through a certificate of appropriateness.
And I think,
Okay.
you know, as a parapet, for any of these, you know, at the face of the building, you know, our thinking is this is going to be stepped way back on the roof, so it's not actually, you know, it doesn't look like a continuation of the face of the building, but it will be well recessed. We're imagining more like a screen.
Yep.
Than a parapet.
Yep, thank you for the clarification. It's parapet or similar architectural feature.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Other questions by the planning board members? Would the, Zach, would you want to go through the staff recommendations before we hear testimony? Or at least the, I could go through the requirements for a major development plan review.
Yeah, I'm happy to go through them. So again, this is just the list of 6 review standards that the USDO requires the planning board review in order to make a determination on a major development plan review application. I'll go through each of the standards along with our staff recommendation for each of those review standards. So for the first one, sorry for the spacing. So the first review standard is that the project will not create a significant adverse impact on the surrounding neighborhood, or any significant adverse impacts will be limited to a short period of time. So the project's located within a MUCU zoning district, but it abuts 5 other zoning districts. The impacts are anticipated to be during the construction period, but the applicant has provided a maintenance and protection of traffic plan to limit disruption for vehicles and pedestrians and cyclists during that time when materials are delivered and there are other related activities related to the construction. A street opening permit will be obtained for any work that's done within the right-of-way, including any proposed pedestrian aspects or impacts, excuse me, will be addressed through that street opening permit process. The applicant's also spoken to the intention of securing parking for residents in the evening to respond to the change of use with more people at the building requiring evening parking as compared to the previous use as an office where daytime parking was a bigger need. Little or no manifestation has changed the physical characteristics of the building other than the replacement of those windows, which would not be visible from the public right-of-way. And this is improving quality of life aspects for the residents to provide more light and air. So the second is that the project would not create any risk to the public health or safety. All potential impacts have been identified and mitigated to the extent practicable. Really the major one that was noted through our review is just pedestrian crossings, since the proposed multifamily structure, or excuse me, family use would likely increase pedestrian traffic across the street to the plaza. So new crossing infrastructure will be installed. And in response to the neighborhood's comments, the floor plans have been revised to include trash storage closets as well. So there's no external trash storage. And also kind of related to that, a residential unit has been included in the floor plans for an on-site building manager to provide more responsive or to be more responsive for any maintenance issues at the site. C, the project's being consistent with any relevant prior approvals or conditions. There are no known prior approvals that the project needs to comply with. The project is consistent with the comprehensive plan for strategies Land Use 1, which is using the Land Use Framework Map, and Land Use 2, which is the Land Use Transportation Connection. And it's providing a housing typology that supports nearby state employees and students along the identified mixed-use corridor, which is shown on the land use map right here. And then finally, the project is consistent with any provisions of the USDO and Albany City Code, which it has been reviewed by all relevant city departments and it does comply. And that the project complies with any requirements and conditions of prior development permits or approvals. and there are not any prior development permits or approvals related to the property that have any requirements or conditions that need to be satisfied in conjunction with this review. And then just for the planning board members, the memo was sent out stating that this was an unlisted action through seeker. But based on further review, it's actually a type 2 action under section 617.5C18. The reuse of a residential or commercial structure is a type 2 action. So therefore, the planning board does not need to make a declaration under seeker for this project tonight.
Okay, thank you. Will we have anybody testifying tonight for this?
Were there any other questions from the board before I switch to public speakers?
Actually,
No.
actually, I have another one, and that is that under the affordable housing requirement, and I know that in this project, the requirement doesn't yield that many units. They're very small compared to the unit size that's existing in the rest of the project that's proposed in the rest of the project. I would recommend that when we vote on this as a condition that the owners set aside comparable size units and not the smallest ones.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, Al. When I spoke with the applicant today, they said that they were going to look into that and potentially modify their affordable housing compliance plan, either to just shift it to another unit or just modify the existing unit to make it larger. But thank you for bringing that point up. And, you know, if the applicant or Jason, if you want to speak to this prior.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of talked about it. You know, we started talking about it a little bit today after it was brought up, and yeah, we've talked about taking those potentially those northern 3 units on the top 3 floors, and you know, turning them into 2 units. I guess I don't know if you bring up that point now. It's the plan that we look at. Well, right where the one is right now. And there's one next to it in the corner, and then the one on next. So the 3 units in a row, and turn that into 2 units, and one of those would be affordable units. So it would increase the square footage to over 500 square feet, comparable to the the market rate units. So that's one thing we talked about. I mean, I don't know if you have any other ideas or shares on the unit, but or we could switch a unit. We know it's something that we have to work out.
Well, make sure it's the average is the same size. We discussed maybe, swapping 1 or 2 of the units out for a different unit, et cetera. Or whatever it is, we'll make sure it's the average matches out.
Mhm.
Board members, further questions, concerns? Okay, well, hearing none,
None for me, Al.
we will have, okay, Chris?
No,
Oh, you said none from you?
none for me.
Okay. All righty. Then will there be speakers testifying on this?
Yep, give me just 1 second and let me pull them from the list. Jackie, are you there?
Yes, I just unmuted.
Okay, give me just 1 second. I'm just pulling up the timer.
Yep.
All right, and feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Okay. My name is Jackie Ring. I've been president of Center Square Association for the past 7 years, and these are our views. Responsible urban planning requires close evaluation of the appropriateness of any given project in the target neighborhood. Center Square Association maintains that this project negatively impacts our neighborhood. It is incompatible with the existing character and ambiance. It will adversely affect the quality of life for current residents in terms of traffic, parking, garbage, and the potential for significant noise and disruption. It will downgrade property values in the immediate vicinity, most particularly on the lower block of Chestnut and State Streets. It undermines Center Square's value as a unique historic neighborhood by interjecting what is essentially a massive short-term residential property similar to extended stay hotels. I'm going to switch, because time is running out, to some asks that we have of the developer. An on-site manager will actually live there, not just have an available apartment. Building rules prohibiting loud music parties and congregating, contain trash that will be placed outside only on the moment of pickup, the day of pickup, and put away thereafter. Parking adjacent to the buildings on the building on both Chestnut and State Street be changed to residential only. And finally, that the developer provide documentation that off-street parking at One Commerce Plaza will be available to tenants. I point out that Center Square property owners have spent decades reducing density by restoring historic properties and townhouses into 1- and 2-family residences from high-density multi-unit rentals. Despite, well, the density of this type has never been the vision and goal of the countless people who have invested collective millions in saving architectural treasures. Center Square Association has said repeatedly that a scaled-down project which encourages stable, long-term rentals and doesn't cram 61 units into a mere 45,000 square feet could be acceptable. However, the developer has refused to consider that compromise. We hope the board will reject this until that is done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Give me just 1 second. Sorry about that. Charles, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Chuck Houghton, and first of all, I'd really like to thank the members of the Planning Board for all the work you do on the behalf of the city we love. I know how much work is involved, as I have served on as a temporary member of the Assessment Review Board, and I'm now chairman of the Albany Water Board. When I first heard about this project at 244 State Street, it seemed like a positive idea that a nearly empty building would be refurbished and put to good use. But now, learning about the extreme density and small size of the apartments, I'm concerned that the project will hurt the Center Square neighborhood by flooding 50 or 60 more cars onto the already crowded streets for parking. I can tell you, even now with the pandemic and many state workers and members and staffs of the legislature not here, it's still very hard to find a parking place. If you leave and come back in the middle of the day, it's impossible. Just this morning, I spent 30 minutes looking for a place, as Tuesday is the clean the street day. I suspect that what the developer wants to do is legal under the new zoning laws. But the reason that our system has a board of review of fellow citizens is to provide a check on issues that are not in the zoning policies and provide a subjective judgment on how a project will add to the city as a whole. Therefore, I hope that you understand how a flood of more cars will hurt the neighborhood, reduce property values, and then real estate taxes to the city. Please do not allow this project to go forward as it is now designed, and please save Center Square as it is. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about that, rookie move. Tony, are you there?
Hello,
Hi,
I'm here.
Tony, are you there with Bonnie by chance, or are you on separate?
We're on separate computers.
Okay, so Tony, feel free to start whenever you are ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, go for it.
My name is Tony Mariano, and I have lived at 116 Lancaster Street for 25 years. My wife Bonnie and I have been very active in the community programs, organizations, and events that reflect our commitment to our neighbors, the city, and businesses. I, as well as those who speak today, are opposed to having the board approve the applicant's request for the 61 residential apartments. I believe it is important to point out that Albany's economic success depends on the stewardship of both its historic downtown neighborhoods and walkable streets. The city's continued interest to restore and or revive its downtown market district by attracting more people to live and work in the city while maintaining or preserving its city landscapes and our quality of life is very welcomed and supported by many. The mayor has more recently provided her unconditional support to this initiative as she and her husband decided to save a historic building from demolition and relocate it to a historic neighborhood within the city. Several companies like Redburn Construction understand the importance of doing business that affects the neighborhood's concerns to maintain the quality of life and its historic heritage. Redburn's proactive business actions repeatedly have supported the mayor's strategic efforts to rebuild the city while preserving our neighborhood's historic heritage. Today's applicant fails to support such initiatives or that of the neighborhood's raised concerns. The planning board, in a previous decision involving the 10 Brock neighborhood, purportedly turned down or turned away an application for a business investor who wished to acquire the former historic St. Joseph's Church because of parking issues. The residents claimed that the number of residential cars had already exceeded the parking capacity of the neighborhood, and the applicant failed to address the safety concerns of the neighborhood. Center Square Association has been dealing with parking as a safety issue since the Empire Plaza was completed. The applicant's marketing survey of another neighborhood involving different types of residents fails to be relevant to the neighborhood's safety concerns, nor do I believe reflects the mayor would accept a justification for the economic initiative for the city. The planning board should ask her if it is. The increased traffic flow is a safety issue. Parking capacity that is raised by the neighborhood remains a safety concern. I got,
Thank you.
Bonnie, are you there? Bonnie, are you there? You're able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Okay, I am Bonnie Mariano. I too live at 116 Lancaster Street, and I am one block from the proposed conversion of 90 South Swan. I want to go on record to say I strongly oppose the proposed development of this building as put forth. We in Center Square embrace a strong sense of community. We welcome new residents and encourage them to get involved in our neighborhood. We take great pride in our historic district. Transient dwellers, such as those being targeted for this project, will have no stake in the community or pride in our neighborhood. The micro apartments are off the mark compared to other developments in downtown Albany. For example, at Hudson Park on Myrtle Avenue has studio apartments, 1 bedroom, and they're almost double the size of what's being proposed at 90 South Swan. They offer amenities such as a fitness center, pet grooming, bicycle storage. Pets are allowed. They have co-working spaces. The conversion of the building on Sheridan Avenue called the Nick has studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, penthouses. They offer a rooftop deck, a gym, a game room, TVs. The Kenmore on Pearl Street, same thing, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, penthouses, many amenities. The Columbia, the Kennedy. The Columbia has apartments up to over 2,000 square feet. I think these developers have strongly invested in the community. They've also made parking arrangements with 3 local garages. The developers of these places know the value of community. They offer various sizes of apartments to attract single people, couples, and families. The amenities they offer will encourage their tenants to stay in their apartments long-term and become vested in their community. I have not seen any amenities being offered to the tenants of 90 South Swan. I have not seen anything being done to keep them as long-term tenants. It is clear to us neighbors that developers of 90 South Swan are only looking to build the 60+ apartments, micro apartments, to make the maximum amount of money and not for making tenants feel part of our community. They will essentially turn that building into a motel-like place with tenants continually moving in and out. This is not acceptable. The size and number of these apartments should be seriously reconsidered. Of equal concern is the parking that has been brought up before. These units could bring many, many cars, up to 100 cars or more. I believe that this project will have significant adverse impact on our neighborhood unless it's redesigned for less units and larger size units. Please consider having these developers align this project with what other developers have done in our area. And parking provisions are a must. Center Square deserves better. Thank you.
Councilmember Conti, are you there?
I am here. Do you hear me?
Yep. Feel free to start
Thank
whenever
you.
you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I am the council member for the 6th Ward. I'm also a resident of Upper Chestnut Street as well. So I just want to offer some comments on the proposed application. First, I don't object to some form of conversion of a portion of this building to residential use. I don't object to density. We live in a dense neighborhood, and I'd argue that probably the density that we already have in the neighborhood meets or exceeds what was envisioned when the comprehensive plan was put together. But I am concerned about the size of the project and the configuration and the potential impact it's going to have on the surrounding blocks and surrounding neighborhoods. We are dealing with a unique property where on the one side, State Street, it's a different type of neighborhood, a different zoning. And I just note that 248 State Street, I believe it's the Frederick Fort Frederick Apartments behind it is currently, I believe, undergoing a renovation as well. And then on the other side, we have Chestnut Street, which is very different, townhouse, 1 and 2 family, 3 family, owner occupied predominantly, but a very different type of neighborhood that's more consistent with the rest of the area, Center Square, Hudson Park neighborhood. And that's the part that I'm concerned about, and the impact it will have on those neighborhoods on the south side there. We talk about parking, and I just want to note, there's not an equivalency between office daytime parking and nighttime residential parking. They are different, and the daytime parking, office parking, is to some extent controlled by the permit parking system, which limits non-resident parking in permit areas. In addition, where we don't have permit parking in that area, we have metered parking, which places additional limits on the level of daytime parking. Nighttime parking is different, and that's where there is it's a larger congestion, more use, and all of the tenants in that apartment will be eligible for resident permits. So it's not, looking at it from my perspective, that office use is more intense than residential, but there is really a difference between daytime and nighttime parking, and that's going to have an impact. And looking at the staff memo and recommendations, I'm just looking at the one of the criteria that the board needs to look at, which is the one that relates to the creation of significant adverse impacts on the surrounding neighborhood. The staff response on that seems to focus entirely on the impact during the construction phase of the project. That's not the concern that you're hearing expressed tonight by neighbors. The adverse impact, potential adverse impact that you're hearing about, that we're concerned about, does relate to the ongoing impact of the apartment once it's in place on the surrounding area based on the density. So what it comes down to is really the project is, I think the concern is larger than is advisable for that area in terms of the number of units, the portion of the building that's being converted. Maybe an option also would be to look at more commercial use rather than that one small cafe use that can reduce the residential impact. But that's the concern here, is that the project is probably too large for that area. It will have potential adverse impact on the surrounding area. And the parking, again, the parking issue is different between daytime and nighttime, and it's really not comparable. So I know we're late in the stage in the board's review of this project, but I would hope that we could maybe have some further review and consideration of those impacts and alternatives that in some way might mitigate some of the concerns that you've been hearing from members, from constituents and residents surrounding the project. Thank you for listening. I don't envy you your job, but I do appreciate your listening to the public on this concern. Thank you.
Chris, are you there? Chris Warner?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yep. I'm just going to change the timer real fast. Feel free to start when you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, Albany Planning Board. My name is Christopher Warner. I live at 317 State Street. I've lived in the Center Square, Hudson Park neighborhoods for the last 20 years. I work at the state capitol, so I walk by 244 State Street every day on my way to work. Every day that I work, that is, which seems to be a lot. So, I'm familiar with the neighborhood. I'm also the treasurer for the Center Square Association. So I'm involved with the community, involved with the neighborhood, and walk in this area all the time. And, thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk, because I gotta say, I actually find planning and development, things like this, very, very interesting. So I appreciate all the work that you do, the planning board, and ensuring that we have responsible planning for the city of Albany. And I'm very excited about the city of Albany. In fact, I was actually rereading the Albany 2030 plan today, and I'd been involved with it when it was being developed years ago. And I was trying to remember, as I recalled it, the things that stood out for me from that plan. And it was things like community health, restorative development, adaptive reuse, and integration with the neighborhood character. These were sort of buzzwords at that time that made their way into the Albany 2030 growth strategy. And I was just kind of thinking about those, because with development, I think we have a real opportunity to revitalize. And with restorative development, you can actually restore value to a building or community, value that may have been lost over the years. So I was really excited when I saw this project and saw it as a real opportunity. However, with the way that this is currently proposed, the project at 244 State, I am really concerned that it's not restoring value, but rather creating alternative value. Just to be clear, or to state the obvious, this project is being sponsored by, not by people who actually live here or want to be part of the neighborhood or part of the community. It's being sponsored by real estate investors who see the potential for financial benefit, right? I mean, that's why anyone makes a financial investment. And it's an investment in Albany. So, why is that so bad? Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be. It could be, there are ways to incentivize real estate investment while also strengthening the community and neighborhood. But this project, I don't feel actually does that. It doesn't conjure up the Albany 2030 values of community health, restorative development, and integration with neighborhood character. Again, this doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. I mean, there's a way that this project could be proposed and implemented in a way that meets, is conducive to neighborhood growth, but as currently structured, I don't think it meets those requirements. So thank you for taking the time to hear me out.
Thank you.
And no other speakers on the list.
Okay. The
I'm
applicants
sorry.
have an opportunity.
I'm sorry, give me just 1 second. I think we did have someone sign up previously, and I'm sorry about that. So
Okay.
I think we just have one more person, and I'm sorry to that speaker. Bear with me just 1 second. Michelle, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Okay, I've spoken before. My name is Michelle Bruck. I live directly across the street from the project. I live at 64 Chestnut Street. I've been living here for about 16 years, and I've been the Director of Communications for the Center Square Association for 7 years, and I'm also on the board of Historic Albany Foundation. And the reason why I am on those boards is because they protect and preserve our neighborhoods. And that is something that I fear this project definitely does not do. My concern is the density, as it always has been. Of course, the parking is a problem, but the density, the amount of people that are going to be moving across the street if this project goes through, to me, I don't see how the planning department says that it does not cause adverse effects to the neighborhood. And also lessen the value of the surrounding houses, especially on Chestnut Street. It's not conducive to the current neighborhood as it stands now. And I really think that this could be, I truly want the city to thrive. I understand we're trying to increase population, increase the tax base, and I understand the need for a project like this, but just in this density, in this particular spot, I don't think it's appropriate. And I think that it can really be actually a good project. I think that it could have really nice, considering the location where it's directly across the street from the Capitol. I think you have a very nice high-end apartments, less dense, longer term renters, since they tend to care about the neighborhood a little bit more. If they're longer term, they're going to spend some time here. They're going to clean up after themselves. They're going to be quiet. They're going to care about the neighborhood that they're living in. My concerns now without this project is constant trash on the streets. I'm always reporting it and I'm not actually getting anything done about it, to tell you the truth. And also the noise. I mean, to have 60 to 120 people moving in directly across the street from me, I can't even imagine. I'm truly concerned about lessening the value of my house. If this does go through and I do want to sell my house, I don't know, I probably will be disappointed. So I really hope that you consider this and perhaps change the density moving forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that, Al. So there are no other speakers.
Okay. The applicants, you have an opportunity for about 5 minutes to clarify or correct any of the what you've heard so far, either from the staff or from testimony.
And I think Jason and Schnur just became panelists, so it might take them a few seconds to unmute.
There are a couple of things to clarify. There was a comment that there were no amenities in the building, and specifically there are amenities that have been planned for on the ground floor there. I mean, there is the commercial cafe, the commercial space. There is also a gym that's planned for, shared co-working space, shared workspace, recreational space, conference room. There is that amenity space that has been provided for. A lot of the comments I'm hearing about density and parking. I mean, it's a parking issue. We know it's a challenge in the city. I mean, as we've heard, the owner is in talks with, adjacent parking lots, One Commerce Square, about, providing spaces for tenants. And as we've talked about, that can't really be finalized until the project is approved and, continues. There were some comments about loud parties and trash, and we have he is deciding to provide a unit for on site, as we've talked about, on site building management, maintenance to help control some of these issues that may arise. I mean, maintaining the trash, it's part of what this person would be doing. Any kind of problems that are sort of that are coming up in a building like this, there's somebody there that should be able to react to things quickly. That should, help with some of those issues, especially trash. That should be, kept up regularly, of course. Some historic issues. I mean, the building is being preserved, at least on the exterior. As it is, there aren't any changes being made there. I think that's sort of sensitive to this area, the historic exterior appearance. I mean, some of the issues with the units and size, and when we think if we make, I think the owner has done, has found that this area, these are the sorts of units that, at least our understanding is that these are the kind of units that people are looking for. The size, the smaller units are more sought after, or at least our understanding from the owner. If we put in 2 beds and vary this, that's two people in the building, and we don't know if that density is actually going to be affected by varying the 1 bed, 2 bed, 3 bed units. It's just spreading. It'll end up with the same amount of people, just fewer units, in a variety of units. This would be the difference. Yeah, I mean, the increased traffic, this was converting from an office building. And I guess the issue isn't about converting from an office to a residence, because in that case, it seems we are reducing the amount of traffic. It's actually happening by reducing the amount of occupancy in the building. So we think that's a plus for the neighborhood. I think I've sort of addressed some of these comments. Is there any more you thinking about? Yeah, I don't know if Sherry's got anything to add, but there's.
No, thank you, Jason. You addressed most of what I had to say. All I can say is that we underwrote the project a few different ways. And this is what we felt from our experience in the, extensive research and with our experience with our other project. This is what rents best. This is what people are looking for. And, trying to write it out any other way, really, just the project wouldn't work. And I hope you give us the opportunity to take it from a nearly abandoned building and fill it up. And I think we can really make the neighborhood a better place, just like we've done over at Park Street. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I think I accidentally moved some of the planning board members to panelists, so bear with me just one second. I think it was shifting right as I was moving. Panelists.
Everybody's here that I could see.
Yeah, Alan, Chris, sorry about that. I think you transitioned to attendees for a second, so sorry about that. I was just trying to move Jason and Cher back to an attendee position.
So will you give the staff recommendations, please?
Yep. So the staff recommendation is to approve the proposed project with two conditions. The first of which we touched on a little bit earlier was just submitting detailed drawings that demonstrate sufficient screening of the rooftop mechanical equipment in accordance with section 375-4F9B of the USDO. And then the second condition, which the applicant and Al, you spoke to a little bit earlier, was that the applicant must implement the Affordable Housing Compliance Plan. And through that process, modifying the units as we described earlier. So really just by saying the applicant must implement the Affordable Housing Compliance Plan, it will have them address the issues with the proposed size of the identified affordable units.
Okay. I think we probably will have further discussion on this, but I'd like to get a motion on the floor. Do I have a motion to approve the project with the conditions mentioned? Somebody unmute them. Everybody's muted here. Again, I'm
Yeah,
calling for,
so moved, Al.
Thank you.
Al, so moved.
Moved by Chris Ellis. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Martin Hall. Discussion on the motion.
Al, that was actually moved by Roman and seconded by Martin.
Okay, thank you.
It's hard to tell the difference between the two of us, Chris.
Absolutely.
We both wear glasses.
Is there discussion on the motion? I would make one comment. we've heard testimony on a couple of occasions now regarding density and transience. I think that when you do look at other developments that we have seen, the majority of those units are rentals, and they tend to be mostly one bedrooms. It seems like if the project gets into larger units, as was suggested by some of the speakers, you would have more people in the building than you do now, or than you would under this plan. The other thing that I seemed to hear was that the project will create a lot of transiency. But what I understand from the other projects that are similar, especially the one that the developer did on Park Street, the tenants, the turnover is not that significant, and the tenants tend to be people who work downtown and work in the state government and want to walk to work. The amount of vehicles they have will likely not be used very much because they are walking to work. And I understand, as the developer mentioned, that they are working on plans to find off-street parking for the project. But I think one of the things that makes the downtown lively and makes the city lively is density. And under the plan, the 2030 comprehensive plan, as was mentioned in the staff report under the LU1 provision, density was an important element, and walkability was an important element related to the location and the corridors that are traveled. Are there other comments?
No, I think you make good points, Al. You know, when I first saw the 61 units, I thought, wow, that really is a very large and dense project. But you know, in thinking about it and thinking about the fact that if they were 2 bedrooms, that would only be 30 units, and it'd be the same number of people. I think that's a very valid point. And I also, you know, I'm also swayed by the idea that these are the size units that Albanians want. These are what people who are living in downtown are looking for, and I certainly think the developer has a good judgment on that. And as you point out, the less driving people do and the more walking around the neighborhood, the better off we are. And this would be a good spot to do that. And I really want to see the restaurants and the stores in downtown and the neighborhoods be successful.
Further comments? If not, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of the proposal to approve with the conditions as mentioned, please say aye.
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 And I vote yes, so it's unanimous. Thank you very much for all the testimony. I know the community members are disappointed, but I don't see this project, frankly, as being a negative. I think it will actually strengthen the community, increase the street life and safety of the neighborhood. Okay, the next item on the agenda, if I could find it through my papers here, because I was making a lot of notes. Here we go. Is DPR 0093. I'm sorry, that's the one we just did. DPR 0035, which is 1415 Washington Avenue. The applicant is 1415 Washington Property LLC. Evan Podab, representing us, representing the project is Dana Hirschberg. The zoning district is mixed use community urban. And the request is right now for us to have a concept review on the major development plan, and a recommendation for the planning board to become the lead agency for the State Environmental Quality Review Act. And the proposal is for the demolition of a 66,000 square foot hotel and the construction of a 414,000 square foot student dormitory with 240 dwelling units and a parking garage with 270 automobile parking spaces. This project requires a couple of variances also, so I believe that the Board of Zoning Appeals will be reviewing this before we get the full proposal. Is the applicant available?
Mr. Chairman, Daniel Hirschberg from Hirschberg and Hirschberg for the applicant. I'm here and ready to speak. You described the project quite well. If we can move through the slides.
You have 10 minutes, by the way.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Next slide, Zach.
And Dan, did I get everyone who needs to speak as a panelist? I have you, Andy Brick, and I believe Evan went back to attending. Okay, Andre, thank you.
And Evan. By the way, they're all not going to speak. They're there to correct me when I say something wrong.
Gotcha. And
I've never heard you say anything wrong, Dan.
Occasionally, Mr. Chairman, I've been known to say something wrong.
okay, feel free to start whenever you are ready, Dan.
I'm ready. The next slide shows the aerial photo of the existing site. That's Crystal Suites, 95 rooms with 95 parking spots. And the entrance off Washington Avenue. And by the way, that entrance will stay just where it is now, just where it's shown. And I'll get to the reason why on the next slide, or on one of the next slides. This is the proposed site plan. The building overhangs a lot of the darker gray spot. That's the ground level. It's going to have parking on the ground level and building over the top of it. And I'll show that later as we get through the site. Next, this is the plan showing the archaeological protection. In 1994, I was the engineer for a project called Washington Center, being proposed by Peter Gullo, the developer. It included everything from where 1355 Washington Avenue is to 1475 Washington Avenue. It includes the old Hellman Theater, the Hellman Hotel, and a lot of other properties. And it was, a portion of it was split by this archaeological easement. In doing my research, when I did the environmental assessment form, this had not yet been declared a historic property. There was a few maps of it. Nobody knew exactly where it came in here. I was lucky enough to have done surveys up and down the area. The same alignment crosses down Breveter Street, Melrose, and goes all the way down towards, actually, this railroad easement went all the way down to Morton Avenue, the top of Morton Avenue, which is where the railroad really started. The people that were on the first railroad thought essentially they could get the railroad to go up Morton Avenue. Unfortunately, the railroad needed to be pulled by horse and buggy to get it up to the top of the hill. And then after that, it ran on its own strength. So I got the history of that down, and we hired Hartkin. And in the review, they also found remnants of the water culvert that came from 6 Mile Waterworks went all the way down to the reservoir in the city. So next plan you can go on, next sheet you can go on to. This compares the statistics with USDO. Lot width, we will exceed. Impervious lot covers were significantly less than that. The front back, this is the one that we need a variance. The front back's supposed to be 10 feet and we're 103 feet back. I'll display later why that's necessary. Side setback 0, we have 12 feet plus or minus, and a rear setback is 0 feet. We have 29 foot, and 5 stories is what we're proposing. 5 stories is the maximum. We do not have any accessory buildings. Chairman, you said we need the 2 variants, and I think that was based upon the fact is originally when we proposed 207 parking spots, that exceeded the number of parking spots required for the site, because we only have 240 units, as is 1/2 per unit. It turns out that on review of the zoning ordinance by Brad Glass, he pointed out that that only applies if in fact they're surface parking. Unstructured parking, we don't need that variance. So we're down to 1 variance we need. This is the historical easement. Now, it may not look like much, but on the left, you'll see the start of a berm that goes quite a ways. Later on in the site, it gets to be like 20 feet tall. The amazing part is that was all done by hand in 1831. They piled all the sand up with wheelbarrows and hand tools to make that berm for the railroad to go on. And that still exists. Unfortunately, the railroad ties, the railroad, the rails, even all of the appliances for the railroads had been taken off. So those are all gone. The photo on the right shows you looking to the east of the driveway. And that shows, that's the other end of the driveway. Going through that, we put a wall in to preserve that portion of the easement, and we limited our area to the area that was allowed to be disturbed in granting this archaeological easement. Peter Gold granted the archaeological easement in 1995, and it obviously still exists today. There was a historical plaque, which we made up. Unfortunately, it has been disconnected from the stone. The applicant will certainly reconnect that to the stone, and it's clean. It's a bronze plaque, and it's still in good condition. And that indicates where the archaeological berm was. Next. This is the report that was made up. It was phase 1 and phase 3. They actually did some recovery on it. It says remains of historical cultural resources were identified along the project area's northern and eastern limits. And this is the only remaining portion of the first railroad, the Mohawk and Hudson, constructed in 1831 and had the first intercity run of a railroad. Next. This is the architectural site plan. They do a better job. They show the green on it. They show the building where it is with us underneath it. And on the top, it shows the placements of rooftop structures. Next. This is the view from existing and proposed view from Washington Avenue. On the left is the view of the Crest Hill Suites now. And on the right is the view of our new building superimposed on the same view. Next. This is existing and proposed aerial views. You'll see on the left is Crest Hill Suites, on the right is our proposed project. Takes up the same space, but we occupy it differently. Next. This is a section of the building, and it indicates the stories and the height of it, and it shows it in reference to the I-90s on the left of that north-south view, and the architectural the archaeological easements on the right portion of that. Next. This is a view heading west on I-90. If you're heading west from Albany out, on the left is the Crest Hill Suites you see, on the right is the view of our new project. Again, partially screened by trees, but as you get opposite, you'll see it more so. Next. And this is heading east. When you're heading east, you don't have the advantage of having the thick trees that you do heading west, so the building is more exposed. However, there is a row of pines and spruces that was planted. People may recall when Crestwood Suite was first built, we built that retaining wall. And within 6 months, it become tagged very heavily. So we planted a whole bunch of coniferous trees along it to screen it, and it does a good job now. You can't see that wall at all. Next. And, oh, that's the same view. I think I gave you before and after. I think that's the same view. Okay, views from the plaza. This is internal to the site. One is looking at the internal plaza, and one is looking down the side of the building. That if you're at the corner closest to I-90, looking east, that's what you would see. Next. Engineers report on sanitary sewage. We had designed the I-90 pump station when it was first put in. We did a modification of it in 2016 by increasing the size of the pipe, so it now has adequate capacity to handle this project. Engineers report on water. The chairman was concerned about the water. Since the original projects were all built there, the city this past year activated a booster station on this entire system, which added the pressure by 10 PSI, so that the average pressure at the site was between 38 and 40 PSI and dropped down to 22 or 24 PSI at high draw times, is now going to be at almost 50 PSI. That's adequate to handle the potable water without doing a pressure pump on it. For the whether or not we run for fire protection, we'll wait until that design is completed. I think it may be enough, but we may need more. The water is a very small percentage of the available water, and the system is adequate to take it. The chairman mentioned at the agenda meeting that there were signs up at the medical office building about what not to flush down toilets. I'm guilty. I'm the person that insists they put them up, because originally, the first time we opened that pump station and they came through it, we found colostomy bags. We found a tubing, plastic rubber tubing down it, a whole bunch of things that don't belong down the toilet. So we put that sign up to try to convince people to use a toilet for its projected use and not to dispose of other things. It's worked quite well. We find very little debris in the pump station. We now have a screen system in debris, which actually grinds it up if it comes into our pump station. Next.
So Dan, that's actually 10 minutes. I'm not sure how many
Okay.
more slides. Let me look to see. Yep,
some-
so it's the last slide. So are there any objections from the board on continuing just with the last slide?
I think we can keep going just a little bit.
Okay. It's a quick summary that the development reserved the railroad embankment archaeological easement. There will be no change in the location of the curb cut on Washington Avenue. Potable water service, the new booster pump will not require a separate booster pump. Adequate water for fire safety with the new booster pump activated. And the decision on fire pump requirement is awaiting a hydrant flow test, which we have requested from the city. Sanitary sewer collection and I-90 pump station are adequate to serve the site. The 2019 Washington Avenue Platoon Creek Corridor Study provided a variety of solutions, including pedestrian and bicycle improvements. And the applicant is willing to participate in funding that, since there are a number of very large portions of that project. And the geotechnical study defined infiltration rates between 8.5 and 24 inches per hour, an average of 12 inches per hour, which is ideal for green infiltration methods, including porous pavement, which we intend to use on the site. Sorry, I took an extra minute.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Questions from the planning board?
I have more of a comment. I'm very happy to see the bullet there about contributing to the pedestrian and bicycle improvements. I think that's a critical issue in this area, obviously with traffic on Washington Avenue.
Yeah, the main improvements were pedestrian and bicycle traffic, but those are the big numbers to put a protected bicycle lane all the way up to Fuller Road.
Exactly. Good.
This may be a question more for Zach, but Zach, in reference to the Washington Avenue traffic and the number of places that one goes in and out, I know that there's been an effort, and somewhat successful, to tie in the parking lots among the different developments along there from 1375 Washington Avenue West. Will this one be connected also so that there wouldn't be more traffic in and out, or will this one not be able to be connected?
I mean, I think at this point, we haven't heard from the applicant whether they're interested in providing cross-access easements with the neighboring properties. I mean, I think to some extent that's going to depend on whether the neighboring properties, you know, want to participate in that or not, as well as the applicant. But I mean, it's something, you know, since it is a recommendation of the study, that's something that our department would advocate for, as long as it's not increasing any dangerous, you know, transportation issues for motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians. But yeah, I mean, I think that's something we would want to have the applicant look at.
Okay, thanks.
I'm looking at one of the aerials that, yeah, just I was going to say one of the aerials that Dan showed seemed to already indicate there was a connection across the property. Is I wrong about that?
Yeah, I mean, there is access to the Dunkin' Donuts. I was referring more to the east.
Back to the east. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the clarification, though, Martin.
Yeah. We looked at connecting to the extended stay America, but it didn't seem from a student housing to an extended stay hotel would be much inner traffic. When it was Cresthill Suites, it might have made more sense, but you know, and the front portion of it, what was shown on the corridor study, actually would interfere with the archaeological easement. But we're willing to talk to the city about it further.
Other questions from the board? Okay, are there any speakers?
No speakers signed up.
Okay. So our task tonight would be to vote to declare the planning board as lead agency for the secret. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, moved by Roman and seconded by Chris?
Yes.
Thank you. Any discussion? And as you might note on the agenda that you got, there are a number of boards and commissions that this has to go through before we move forward. So we'll be definitely seeing this project probably another couple of times.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, all of those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. All right, it's unanimous. We will be the lead agency on the project. Okay, the next item on the agenda is just an informational piece. We aren't taking any testimony. This is just to provide an update regarding 60 Colvin Avenue. And the update is on the result of the test pit sites.
And Al, just bear with me. I'm just bringing up. No, I'm not seeing. I believe. Oh, I'm sorry about that, Tony. I forgot that Joe was not going to be attending tonight. Bear with me just 1 second. All right, Tony, you should be able to unmute yourself and turn on the camera if you'd like.
How was that?
Yep.
There you go. Okay, perfect.
So I think just to give the board a little bit of context, the applicant had requested just some time just to share the results of the test pit sites, since it was a point of discussion at earlier meetings for the project. So really this is just to share the results, and if there's any questions on, what the tests found, essentially. So, Tony, I just created 2 slides. This first one was provided within the report for the testing. This just shows all the locations where tests have been done on the site, going all the way back from 2001 up until now, with the most recent one that was done in August. The one in August is shown in red with the little boxes right here, here, and here. And so based on the results from the investigation, there was no elevated volatile organic compounds found. Metals were detected below DEC standards, as well as semi-volatile organic compounds were detected, were also below DEC standards for multifamily housing. So in light of the findings, the engineer who conducted the investigation, William Hennessy, found in his opinion that no further site investigation was warranted and no restriction of the land use was recommended.
Zach, could I just point out one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you go back to that previous slide.
Yep.
That center red square that we dug, the one that is closest right there, that one, I believe there was a plan that was put in, I think by Dan Hirschberg. I asked him to overlap that with if you can remember back to one of the previous slide, there was a yellow line indicated from a previous Clough Harbor study, which talked about area of potential fill. And that is right in the center of that area. I had asked Dan Hirschberg to provide me with 2 measurement points from the existing pavement and from the existing corner of the building to where we dug that. So I just want the board to know that, because that was one of the concerns, that we test that area, and that was there.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments on this before we move on, or are we all set? Any questions from the board? Okay, I guess we'll move on. Thank you very much for the update. And we'll see this project, I guess, pretty soon again.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a project updates from the Common Council meeting and also other project updates regarding 76 Second Avenue. Will this be presented by our council or by you, Zach?
This is being presented by the applicant, and then once the applicant's done presenting, what we'll do is we'll go through the planning department's initial comments for the project, and also provide some time for board members to provide any initial comments on the project based on a request that was made by the applicant. I think at the last meeting, the applicant was put at the very end, so it kind of limited their time to get feedback from the board. I think due just kind of fatigue being a long agenda. So this was really the opportunity for the applicant to get the board's feedback and just make sure that they're heading in the right direction, so they can make any changes necessary to kind of align with what the board was wanting to see for the project.
So the applicant will provide an update also regarding the 21st September Common Council meeting?
Yeah, just to talk about the zoning map amendment as well.
Okay, thank you. All righty.
Good evening.
Tim.
Zach, can you also elevate Jim Garrison?
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Kelsey. Good evening, Stephanie Ferradino on behalf of the applicant. With me tonight are Jim Garrison and Kelsey Carr and Ed Larkin from the Chazen team. As you heard, the Common Council heard this matter last Monday and granted unanimous approval on both the zoning map amendment and the seeker resolution. So we've crossed that hurdle, which puts us in position for a vote with this board, which we would love to entertain at the next meeting if possible. We'll see how far we get tonight. We've also commenced discussions with the owners of both 84 and 86 Second Avenue. They're now represented by council, and we're working with them in order to see if we can come to some type of resolution, purchase of the property or design modifications. We appeared on September 3rd before the Technical Review Committee. Ed Larkin has met with fire and is making adjustments such as Knox box and alarm panels to the project, consistent with those discussions. And as you know, this is our fifth appearance before you. I'm going to have Jim Garrison hop in now and take you through the modifications to the project since you've seen it last, and the Chazen team and I will be available for any questions towards the end. Go ahead to the next slide and Jim will take over.
Good evening, everyone. We've worked through a number of refinements basically over the project, and those include adjustments related to elevation, construction, and phasing. So let's start with Second Avenue. You'll see that the Second Avenue building is not part of the submission at this point. We have a temporary space which will have a gate, gravel paving, some trees, lighting, and will be used as a pop-up space, a space for events and so forth that will be sponsored and illustrated by the 76. It has a, you can see, I guess, my cursor. It has a walk and a bridge. This is a very heavily sloped area which we planted, and that leads, gives level access, accessible access to the first core and finally to Scott Street. Generally, we have, and I think you've seen most of this.
What is the green? What's green represent on here?
Green is planted area.
Okay.
So that's that site has a substantial drop, fairly level through this white space where my cursor is, and then it hits this line, and then it drops quite steeply, and it would come down to near the first floor of this building. Let me just continue around Crank Street for a minute. We'll show you this in a minute. There's been quite a lot of development in this area. What we've tried to do is really condense and simplify all of the parking entrances, and in this case, and I know you've seen this before, but concentrate them on Crank Street with two well-constructed entrances with a lot of visibility, so the drivers can see and the pedestrians can be seen from any cars that are coming from this area. And these are level entrances. There's no slope really involved with them. We've also developed the accessible entry to Scott Street, plazas, overlooks, stairways, and greenery in such a way to break down the scale. I mean, it's a challenging site because as it steps down the hill, the podiums and the bases of the building tend to expose themselves. So what we're trying to do in many instances we'll show you is to keep that scale down to human proportion, no more than 6 feet up here, really level throughout. And you'll see how we've done that. Again, this is the drive, and just going down a bit, there are a series of benches. Crank Street is very steep in this area. It's actually steeper than an accessibility guidelines would allow in a building. But this area is a constructed wetlands, and it's part of the water purification system. And it's basically just planted. It's not wet. It's just, it has a gravel base and it has plantings that whose roots go down and help purify the water as it runs through it. Doesn't smell, it's a good neighbor, and it's attractive. And we've used it actually as a kind of symbolic front door for things. As we keep going down, there is a level access, and this is an accessible access into Building C down here. And we have revised this courtyard and entrance to Building D to make it a level to bring the children into the daycare area at the bottom, at the very corner. We've added stairs going up Seymour Street with rails. So if you do come down through here, you can manage it. And we put 2 parking spaces on the most level part of Crank Street. This Crank Street is very steep, particularly as we come up in these central areas. So that's down here at the bottom, and that's been made convenient to the daycare. As we keep coming around and going up Leonard, we have the service area of the building, which you probably recall is across the way from a grass embankment without housing on the west side. There is a recycling container pickup here. There is a truck dock here, the fire stairs and so forth. These 2 round pieces are part of the water filtration system. The rest of it's below grade. And then as we come up the building, there are stair egress, there's a glass area. We come up into this area and we are level at this point with Leonard, and you can walk on to the center. And we'll have another.
Your cursor doesn't seem to be, you just mentioned all those items. And
you can't see my cursor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, not the last few items regarding the truck access and.
Okay, well, let's go back.
We were talking.
Yeah, let's go back. Can you see it now?
Well, yeah, it's in the white space.
That's not mine.
So Jim, I'm operating the PowerPoint, so just let me know when you want me to move to the next slide. So I'm on the first slide.
Oh, well, Zach, can you just, is that your cursor I'm seeing?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know this project well enough to follow with me?
For some of it, but again, since this was somewhat recently submitted, you're going to have to guide a little bit.
All right, come around to Leonard Street at the bottom building, Building D, and just start with those 2 round circles, the white circles there, right? So the gray circles are trees. Right.
I hate to interrupt again, but somebody sounds like they're working in their kitchen. And if you are, whoever you may be, can you mute yourself?
Yeah, hang on.
I keep hearing rattling of pots and pans and water running and things like that.
Hang on a minute, Al. We're yeah. Make it here.
Okay.
Towers, you will have a look at them. You would go just north of that gray area that Zach has a cursor on right now. That is the that's 2 truck spots, so that and it's long. So and we've coordinated it with the container trucks. And just north of that, then covered, is a Zach can just go up 1 little spot. Yeah, right there is a covered truck dock for general service purposes. And that would include the stores, move-ins, and so forth. All of that connects down to the parking so that we can distribute throughout the building at the parking level. And then if we go north again to the center of the Scott Street Plaza, you'll see off of Leonard Street. Zach, if you can just go to Leonard where it enters the plaza, right there, we are level and you can walk in the level spot to Leonard. And then Zach, if you just go up to the northern corner of Building B, there is a kind of rectangular projection, and that is an additional loading dock that serves what is scheduled to be a market in building B. So that will be mostly foodstuffs and the necessities of that market. And then so that gives you the general overview. Let's go on to the next image. Okay, so this is simply a detail. It shows a little bit of the dimension. You can see that we're showing some 76 feet across at that point. It's closer to 100 feet in total coming across Second Avenue. And you see the lighting, which is indicated on the bridge, and those are those black dots on the gray bridge. Let's keep going. All right, this is that entry. We constructed an entry, a place for people to walk, wait for the bus, get access up, take care of the slope, and basically you'll see the building B in the background, and a few trees in there. They won't be that big to begin with. All right, let's keep going. Just another image of that entrance gate / bus stop waiting zone. Next, please. That's the bridge leading over the green embankment to the accessible entry, which ultimately would be integrated with Building A. But keep going, please. All right, this is a blow up of this area. Zach, if you can help me, that snaky piece on the east side is a ramp. And that takes us from the highest point we can get at it on crank and brings a gentle rise 1 to 20, so no handrails, up to the plaza. You can see intersecting it. This is a little hard to explain, but where it says 12 by 31, yeah, right where Zach's at, and then down by the street line, there are stairs, and those stairs come up, they can become part of the ramp, and then they depart from it. And then there's another ramp and stair up where it says 6XST up at the, just going north a bit. And that brings you up to a plaza, which is can be used for dining and so forth, just above. So there's a series of steps, which you'll see. In the area of the Scott Street Plaza itself, you can see green areas, and you see these circles that are in these kind of diamond-shaped businesses. Now, we have parking underneath this, and the construction and the geometry of the parking makes it very difficult, really impossible for us to put serious tree pits in. So we have another solution, which is really a very nice solution. It's taken from a park, an urban park in Zurich, and we basically are using cables and vines and growing within the space between the two buildings, which we'll show you. You can see some of the lighting in the cross path. Remember, this path leads directly from 2nd Avenue north to south all the way through the building. So if you go a little bit to the east, Zach, with your pointer where it says SR, yeah, so that's lighting, that's the path. The lobbies are off of that. They're transparent. They're meant to be seen. And as we go down to the very south, you'll see there's a stair which brings us down to the next level. You'll also see, Zach, can you see the elevator at the end of that path? At the very, yeah, that elevator then is a public access elevator that allows anyone who needs accessibility provisions to come down to the next level and get to building D. So that's the way that system works. Okay, let's go to the next. All right, this is an image. You can see all the components. You can see the wetlands in the foreground. We have enclosed the parking in some kind of fritted glass. Well, we use glass, which will have a pattern on it. We don't have the exact pattern yet. You see the drive next to it. You see that the stairs coming up from Crank. Zach, can you help me out here? Yeah, you see the stairs coming up from Crank. Yep, there it is. You can see the stepped retaining walls next to it, which will have greenery integrated. The parking and the drives are all in shadow with an overhang, which is important for this. And you can see in in the Scott Street Plaza, these vines which are reaching up and basically filling the plaza. We've also used two different colors of photovoltaics. We have photovoltaics on the east and west sides, and we have a pattern, a little hard to see here, of photovoltaics. And the rest I think you know. Next, please. This is walking up the ramp and seeing the last flight of steps, which will have a handrail for the access from Crank Street. You can see the plaza on the left. Part of what you're seeing here are the graphics which are built into the glazing of the storefronts. They are basically graphics that can be backlit. They're meant to tell the story of people in the neighborhood, notable people who are, you know, who we want to record the history of events and so forth. Okay, let's keep going. You can see benches around the plaza to the left and the right. And you can see this is the entry looking back at 2nd Avenue. The lobby is in the left. The stairs, as you see, are exposed behind glass, so we can see people moving inside the building. The materials that we're thinking of using are glazed ceramics for that orange interior. So it's bright, cleanable, durable. The panel system of the building is fiber cement. We use a very high quality fiber cement panel. It's integrally colored and has very rich, deep colors. Very, very good panel. It's a rain screen. And then of course you see the planting system, which is part of the building. The planters the benches we would hope would be solid, solid stone. We would get some backs on some of them so people can rest. And next, please. All right, there's just another view looking the other direction and showing the planting, the lighting, and the benches. All right, next, please. All right, now we're down at building D. This is a close-up. You can see the two automobiles in the pull-off spot for daycare. The arrow just to the left of those is the daycare entry. And up a few steps in the plaza is the entrance to the housing. And then the stair, which leads right next to that housing, if you go, that's the one. That now brings you up to the greenhouse terrace and will connect you into the whole movement system. If you're able to take the stairs, and if you're not, you go underneath and you can go over to the public elevator that we discussed before. The stairs off of Seymour, you can see they're long step stairs. The two filters, the round filters, you can see, and you can see some of the circulation. All right, next, please. This is the overlook next to the greenhouse, looking out over Crank Street toward Crank Park. It's covered so that you can walk in a covered fashion over to building D. Next, please. That's that area and what it looks like. You can see the wetlands a bit to the right. You can see the greenhouse. You can see the stairs down from building through building C down to the level area. So that's what that appears, how that appears. Next, please. This is the greenhouse area, the loading dock, and the recycling center that we mentioned before. We're just providing some detail of it so you can see how it's meant to work. It's that these areas are set back quite far from the street, and we have worked very hard to reconcile them with the gradients over in that area. You can also see the drive in from Crank for the public parking area and the greenhouse. Next, please. All right, we have a material board, and we want to get some materials in the flesh up to you. It's laid out. You can see most of the components and the colors and so forth, but we have a few details. So let's go to the next. All right, so the residential and exterior balconies. The balcony areas are is stainless steel web net. It's is a very tight pattern. It's very transparent, and the pattern is tight enough that children cannot climb it. We've used it on schools and so forth. Very good luck. This is the blue is a solar panel. The balcony floor is galvanized steel. The planter will be metallic paint. We're using an Alpen stainless steel. Alpen fiberglass window, which is triple glazed and extremely durable. And these number 6 are the particular colors, which you can see are these kind of cream colors that we've chosen based on, and their reflex is actually a slightly reflective fiber cement panel that has a very, very beautiful finish. And next, please. Okay, so the plaza and the courtyard, there are a series of colors that are used, and they're listed here. You can see what they are. We're using Hanover, number 8 are Hanover pressed pavers. These are variegated, speckled, highly pressed concrete pavers. There's a series of them of contrasting colors. We're using stainless steel in some of the ceiling areas. There is perforated aluminum used in some areas, and we are using reclaimed wood in some areas as well. And you can see them listed back in the full matrix. Let's go to the last. Next slide. Okay, so the passages, again, Swiss Pearl, it's the Paradigm Group. The glass is by Precursa, which is a company that will make that kind of glass. And we have also used some corrugated aluminum with clear anodized for the ceiling areas. And I think that's it. Is that the end of it? One more, okay. So the base of the cladding, the parking, precast concrete. And then we're using a bit of stone, basically inexpensive, absolute black in various areas for benches or curb areas and so forth to set it off. And that should be it. Yeah, and there's the overall view again. All right, so that's the briefing.
And I think this has a video, like a flyover video, if I remember right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if everyone's able to see that. I can see it on my end, but.
Yeah, Zach.
Okay.
In this video, when you swing it over to Second Avenue, I'm trying to understand the Second Avenue building that's right out there, the 76 building.
I'll try and pause it.
Okay, you're right there.
Yeah, so this is phase 1 are buildings B, C, and D. This rendering is not showing building A. That's our phase building.
Okay, no wonder. I was trying to figure out where it was.
Right.
We're still trying to figure out whether we're able to work out to acquire those 2 properties that are shown on the right. And until that time, we won't be designing that building.
But I think before you showed an alternate plan that had that building there with the 2 houses, right? Okay. That's
correct.
why I was a little confused because I was wondering where it was in this particular image.
Yep. That's our phase 2 design, and so we'll be back before you for for design of that building and review and approval of that building at a later date.
Okay.
I'm curious, the daycare, is there going to be any outside area for the kids or no?
Well, they can use the upper terrace, but they're right next to Crank Park. So that's really the idea. They're diagonally across the street. So we thought, let's put the entrance where they had the easiest possible access to it.
Any other questions from the board?
Will there be any facilities for residents on the roofs of the buildings under the solar panels?
Yes, there are. I didn't really come back to it, but you'll notice that the solar panels sit on top. They're 1 story above the roof, and in some areas they're 2 stories above the roof. Now they're not very comfortable when they're 1 story above the roof. They rotate and they take out most of the sun. So what we did is we removed units and we made common spaces and outdoor terraces for the buildings. Each building has one, and it has a view, and it is accessible to everyone, and it has the panels well up in the air, and it makes some very nice spaces. So we're delighted with those. I think it's going to. The other thing it did for us is it broke down the scale of the building along Crank. It, let it step. We put an extra step in each building.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. I think another thought is the courtyards between the buildings, which are very attractive. I like the idea of having that semi-public space there. But I was wondering a little bit about maybe a bit of a wind tunnel effect, especially between B and C. Is there any chance of that happening, or will the plantings break that up?
Well, the plantings will definitely break it up. I have to tell you though, we tried to put wind generators on top of these buildings, and ironic as it might be, you have very little wind in Albany.
Okay.
On any given day, just go to the corner of Washington Avenue and Swan Street.
Yeah.
And hang on to your clothes.
Yes.
This should be okay. It's on the downhill side. It does. I mean, we know the prevailing winds. They switch around. They come from the southwest in the summer and the northeast in the winter. But the buildings should work pretty well to help that out.
Okay, and I have one final thought is to make sure you work with CDTA on the design of the bus shelter.
Yes, we will. We'll work.
There's some issues there for their standards.
I have a general concern, and I know you can't answer it tonight, but these buildings are, as you have depicted them in these renderings, are very dynamic, very attractive, light, airy, and very forward-looking. There's no question about it. But this is a big project, and it's going to take a long time. And I want to make sure that the design doesn't suffer if all the funding doesn't come through, or if the funding is the project is more expensive than you expected. I imagine you're going to have to do an awful lot of engineering, and you may come across issues underground that you haven't anticipated. But I would hate like heck to see a project of this scale have, say, one dynamic building that's all the glass and all of the pizzazz that you've shown here, with all those wonderful colors and textures, and then have the rest of the place look like a concrete bunker. I've seen too many big projects with a lot of great ideas that have not exactly fulfilled what they originally wanted to do.
Well, that's a fair concern. That's the concern I have every morning when I get out of bed. The thing is that we all have to, I think we all have to work to make sure that that doesn't happen. I think that's a team effort from us, from the city, from everyone. There's a very low standard in our country for housing in general, and we really are looking to exceed it. We're trying to make this building an economical building by using construction techniques and simple massing and keeping the base of the building as rational as we possibly can. And we've worked hard on that. You have to start with good bones if you're going to have a chance. But a couple of things have happened that give us, I think, a good indication. One is that the legislature passed the PACE Act last week. So PACE funding is for sustainable features for the building, and it is tied to the property as opposed to the developer's debt. So it stays with the property. And it has a very long time period for the payback, and it's very generous. All the things that you see on this building that are expensive, and that includes the facades, the solar panels, the balconies, the rotating panels on top, are all funded through the PACE program. And it's that program that allows this to be a progressive building. So, that's the balance of it. The windows for the residential, the fiber cement panels, these are not expensive items. I think they would be affordable under any circumstances. So that's the plan, is to use, we've made the decorative parts of this building largely the sustainable parts of this building, whether it's the greenery, the solar panels, the balconies, and that is by design so that they can be funded and be an essential part of it.
Okay, thanks. I'm making notes here. Sorry. Any other thoughts, concerns, ideas that the board wants to express? Okay, hearing none. We thank you very much and look forward to moving forward on this.
So Al, I was just going to give some time quickly just to go through what our department's seen as some comments. And then I believe.
Okay, I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know that you were prepared to do that yet. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. And then I believe previously the council for the neighbors wanted to speak. So I will leave that up to the board on whether they want to take public testimony. I think just in general practice, it's probably good to have more opportunities than less opportunities to provide public testimony, especially since this is early on in the process, and that'll help inform, the design and the process of the review. But again, I will leave that up to the board.
No, I don't see a problem with that. I didn't understand. Wasn't my understanding that we would be hearing from council, but I certainly think that's fair, and I have no problem with that. Do we want to hear that, or do you want to make the planning department comments concerning the design first, and the process?
I think we can have the council speak first. So give me just 1 second and I'll switch over to the timer.
Okay, Mr. Baker, you will be on. And by the way, I believe there was a letter that we also saw.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I think everybody can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I'd be happy to hear the staff's comments first. That may, make my comments shorter. They're not going to be very long anyway, unless you want me to go first.
Feel free to go ahead, Mr.
right.
Baker, since you're
All
let me
right,
know.
thank you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to address this. I represent the James Dunbrook and Deborah Dunbrook at 86 Second Avenue and Audrey Wedenbeim at 84. I just have a few comments, and I appreciate the opportunity. We're going to be looking at this. We made extensive comments to the Common Council during their seeker review, and unfortunately, the Common Council did a fairly inadequate job of addressing the clear potential adverse environmental impacts associated with that. But we're nevertheless, we're going to evaluate this project going forward, and my clients will determine what their legal rights are. My first question is ask for basic access to information. Your the case management file for this, the only one that still exists is the ZMA 007 file, which does not have any of the current site plan, any of the current application. And so I think it's imperative that you create one for this. The number that's actually you've assigned to this one has been assigned actually exists for another project, I think the Washington Avenue project. So I think it's very important that information be made available. There are significant questions that the board's going to have to address regarding the impacts of this project, and it was represented by the planning department to the council that you would address those through your review here, including some of the traffic impacts, some of the access for construction materials, the shadow impacts, and certainly questions about the enormous amount of pile driving that appears to be required to construct these phases. We've just seen tonight that the project proposed to go forward with just without building A, recognizing that my clients are in discussions, potential settlement with the applicant. However, that may not go forward, and the evaluation has to go forward on the basis that my clients are going to still live there, which is their first preference, and that the project is appropriately developed around them and somehow provides the benefits that have been associated. So those are the issues we want to look at going forward. I appreciate the time to talk to you about this and look forward to getting access to all the information. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Baker. To clarify, I believe that the project has assigned a different number, which was 375, and that all of that information is up and available now?
If I may, it isn't. 375 is for a different project. It's actually 1415 Washington Avenue, if you look it up. And if you put this in and you go through the case files, the only thing that's up there is the ZMA application, which is most of the information that was relevant for the Common Council. But there is no site plan. There's no major development plan application available on your website.
And Alan, Jeff,
Exactly.
just to jump in, so
yeah,
our department couldn't officially accept the application until the zoning map amendment was approved by the Common Council, because the proposed use wouldn't have been permitted on the site without variances. So that's why it hadn't been posted earlier. We're still working to create an acceptance letter for the applicant. That is usually the point when we create a number for the application. And that's also when we typically upload application documents to the website. There's been somewhat limited staff time over the past week. So these documents will be uploaded soon, and they will be given a unique application number so that members of the public and council have an opportunity to view those documents. So yes, we understand that concern, and we want to make sure that we're providing accurate information about the application in a timely manner. So we're looking forward to doing that within the coming week. So responding to that, I'll quickly go through the initial planning department comments for the application. Again, this is being reviewed by multiple departments. We've already had our Division of Engineering respond, as well as the fire department. The water department received some additional project materials as a response to the Division of Engineering's comments. So they are still reviewing their documents and will provide comments on, I believe, October 7th. And we're still waiting on the Division of Traffic Engineering for their comments, but some of those staff members have been out of the office. So I'll move through planning department comments. These were mainly responding to the August site plan submission. So some of these won't be relevant based on the updated application materials that were submitted by the applicant. So I'll try to address some of those changes when I see them as we go through this, and I'll again try to keep it brief. And okay. So the first one, I think we'll be more than satisfied just with the previous site plan submission. The lot coverage was very close, but it just needed to be confirmed. I think given that it's showing 92nd Avenue as part of the consolidated lot, lot coverage should not be an issue. Moving on to the second issue, the front setback along Building B to 2nd Avenue does exceed the maximum permitted. This could be resolved by modifying the lot through a lot modification application to temporarily create a second lot between 2nd Avenue and Building B. That's up to the applicant on whether they want to pursue that or an area variance. And then the parking garage on floor 1 would just need to be updated to remove the southwesternmost spot to comply with the 50-foot buffer requirement for parking garages from an R1L zoning district. For dimensional standards comments, the applicant will need to submit an affordable housing compliance plan that identifies at least 9 affordable housing units based on the applicant's intent for the site and the use of the site. That's not seeming to be a problem. It's just something that needs to be done since they're proposing more than 50 units for the site. Based on the August site plan, a portion of Building B encroaches onto 72nd Avenue. So just a revision to the site plan to resolve that encroachment should be done, or just submitting a lot modification application that includes a portion of 72nd Avenue on there. The proposed solar canopies for buildings B, C, and D will need to receive licensing agreements with the city since they extend over the public right-of-way. And the proposed solar canopy on Building B extends beyond what's permitted for an alternative energy equipment facility for solar, since it's less than 2 feet from the side lot line. So similar to the encroachment, just a revision to the application to either provide that setback or a lot modification, including 72nd Avenue, should be done. Under the access, circulation, and connectivity section, the proposed lot consolidation, including Scott Street, would exceed the maximum permitted size for a block, which is 1,500 feet at 1,596 feet. So this can either be resolved through an alternative lot modification application or through an area variance. For parking and loading, in the August submission, there was a deficit of 2 parking spaces after all adjustments in calculating on-street parking spaces. The applicant did submit a traffic demand management plan, which is being reviewed by our chief planning official to determine whether or not that's sufficient to cover that deficit, that deficit of 2 spaces. In previous site plans and floor plans, proposed 75 bicycle parking spaces were shown. They weren't in the August one, so just updating the site plan and floor plans to include those spaces and then the details for any proposed racks. The curb length and space depth for the parking garages do not meet the standards for parking space dimensions and would either need to be revised or seek area variances, or a waiver. The proposed floor to ceiling height for the garages would need to be revised to meet the standards of the USDO. There's a section that requires at least 13 feet in height for any ground floor parking garages for the potential conversion later on into another use. So they meet building code. There might have been modifications with the September 21st submission that rectify that. The loading dock B in the August site plan submission did not comply with the required depth, or a portion of it didn't comply with the required depth for loading dock spaces of 35 feet. So just making sure that all loading docks are at least 35 feet deep, so they're not encroaching onto the sidewalk and creating hazards or potential hazards for pedestrians and motorists. We'll need to see a proposed height for the loading docks. And then also just including and identifying snow storage areas for the loading docks that will accommodate expected snowfall and ensure there's not damage to landscaping. Under the landscaping section, just adding notes, confirming that there's the minimum radius provided free of trees or shrubs around fire hydrants, valve vaults, hose bibs, manholes, and fire department connections. Updating the plan just to show that the required landscaping areas are using at least 30% vegetative materials and that 25% are designed and constructed to serve as stormwater infiltration and treatment facilities for stormwater falling on impervious surfaces on the water parcel. Again, based on the intent and of the applicant and the design of the project, these are things that will likely be achieved. It's just, again, ensuring that they're meeting those standards. The landscaping plan will need to be updated to show side lot line buffers for side lot lines with 70, 84, 86, 89, and 92nd Street to meet the side lot line buffer standards of the USDO. There may be additional buffers that are needed if the lot modification changes for the site. And that the site plan be updated to provide screening for the loading areas that meet the loading area screening standards of the USDO. For building and streetscape design, the updated submission addressed a lot of the issues with the elevations having visible pedestrian entrances, which was great to see. There might need to be some changes to the facades of the retail units because retail units are required to provide at least 50% transparency. So just needing to confirm that based on the new mural design. It might just be a change in how the murals are installed. It might be kind of a painted on effect onto the glass. The elevations will need to be revised just to provide a change in design or height of the parapet since it is a flat roof. And with the change in design, it needs to be at least 2 feet in height or design along each 100 lineal feet of the facade. And with the landscaping plan, just needs to identify at least 17 pieces of street furniture installed, 1 per 50 feet of frontage. More pieces may be required if Scott Street does not become part of the entire site and remains a designated right-of-way. And then just a more defined lighting plan demonstrating how the project meets the lighting standards of the USDO, which we were seeing a little bit of tonight. And then some additional comments, just our department recommends submitting photo simulations of the elevations along Crank and Leonard, showing how they interact with the opposite street frontages. Again, the video I think was very instructive tonight, showing all the perspectives of the proposed development. And we're also recommending submitting a service order request with National Grid to determine any potential conflicts with the proposed design and National Grid standards. We've seen this with some projects because National Grid identifies itself as an overhead utility provider. And sometimes that creates conflicts with the designs that are being proposed. So we just recommend starting that process early on. So if there are any conflicts, those can be addressed prior to site plan approval.
Okay. So I believe you have your marching orders.
Thanks,
And we-
Zach. Can you share
Comments
those?
by-
Yes, yeah, I'll share those slides with you, Stephanie and Kelsey.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, and if you can get the appropriate numbers up in terms of the project numbers and all the information for the public as soon as possible, that would be very good.
Yep.
Okay. All righty. Do we have any other issues or questions concerning the 76 project? All righty, we have one other task tonight, and that is, should the board vote for it, we would go into executive session. The purpose of this is concerning the lawsuit of Somerset Associates, LP at 907 Central Avenue, LLC, Dedham Post Funding LLC, and Central Colvin Realty LLC versus the Common Council of the City of Albany, the City of Albany itself, and the City of Albany Planning Board. I will entertain a motion that we go into executive session to discuss this. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Gaillard. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we are going into executive session, and then we will go back to officially finish the meeting, which essentially would be adjourning it. So you need a couple of seconds, right, to move to executive session, Zach?
Yeah, so just for the board members' knowledge, it might be good, and Amy can provide some guidance on this, but it might be good to either make a motion now within this existing meeting to end the meeting at a specified time, or to do some alternative method to officially end the meeting. So Amy, I'll defer to you on that. But before that, I just wanted to state that I just sent an updated link. So you all should have that. I'm not sure if the link had changed. I had to change the time just based on the schedule of the meeting. So Amy, I'll let you provide best guidance on how we should proceed with a vote to end the meeting.
This is somewhat uncharted territory with Zoom and executive sessions, but I would suggest that the board take a vote now to end the meeting after the executive session is finished, and then the minutes will reflect what time the meeting finished and that the meeting was closed.
Okay, that sounds efficient. So we need a time definite.
I think it's
to end the
sufficient.
meeting,
I think it's sufficient that the time that the meeting ends is recorded in the minutes.
Okay.
I just tried to join the other meeting, by the way, and it looks like you can't be part of 2 Zoom meetings, so we have to leave this one before we can join.
Yeah, I don't think that
Right.
we'll be able to come back to this one. So again, I think that given the circumstances, it would be sufficient for you guys to vote to close the meeting once the executive session discussion is closed.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting of the planning board
When the executive session is over.
when the executive session ends. Thank you. Do
So
I have a
moved.
motion?
Yes.
And a second, please.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay,
So
thank you very much.
we'll reconvene in a moment.
I just gotta end the
Okay.
recording, so I'll be with you shortly. So thank you all for your patience.
So do we leave this one and go to the next one?
Yep, I have to end this and then I will end the meeting and then I will start up the new one. So it might take a little bit of time before you can join.
Okay. Do we wait then for that little, you sent us an email with the little doodad or?
I just sent the updated link. I just have to stop the live stream, which I'm just gonna